Okay, the May 3rd, 2017 meeting of the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging is now being called to order. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Francine, would you please call the roll?
Please say here present when I call your name. Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Chair Fotheringham.
Here.
Commissioner Gitt.
Present.
Commissioner Gorbach.
Here.
Commissioner Hagee.
Here.
Vice Chair Healy.
Here.
Commissioner Maria.
Here.
Commissioner Mortimer.
Here.
And Commissioner Norkin.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, now is the time for public comments. I know of one public comment today from Dinah Frischling.
I'm Dinah Frischling, and today I'm representing the Kaneho Valley Village. All of you here and who are listening who are between 60 and 120 will be interested in this grand organization if you want to live in your homes for as long as possible. The village attempts to create an environment of members and volunteers, a grassroots environment, an independent environment, of the type of neighbors helping neighbors. That is the primary premise of what we are doing. And the Council on Aging, to the Council on Aging, we have a special relationship and a recognition of their role in initiating the village in our area, and we'll always be grateful for that. The village movement is spreading across the United States. It's about 15 years old. Every community can use a village. And the village is a virtual concept. It's not a place you go. You stay in your own home, and the village attempts to work with you as members, as volunteers, to create an environment that makes it easier to stay at home, easier to participate in activities in the community, to meet people, and to get things done that you can't really, are harder to do yourself. So our number is, if you'd like to contact us, 805-372-1826. Or we have a website, great website, KanehoValleyVillage.org. Much of what we do is through the website in terms of people putting in the service requests that they have and volunteers signing up for service requests. And much of that, there's a great relationship. About a third of the volunteers are members, and they work it out that way or through telephone calls. Don't have to be a computer user to join. The main thing today is it's congratulations to Kaneho Valley Village for its first month. We have been developing it for the last couple of years, and now we are open. We started out signing up, joining about 130 people, many of which were volunteers and many of which are members. So we would like anyone who is interested to please contact us. The benefits. I think the most critical one is that it extends the time that you can live in your own home and your own community. Very critical. It encourages independence and volunteerism and an interdependence between people. Sometimes you can get isolated if you don't drive anymore, you live up in the hills somewhere. It provides a one-call approach for assistance with services as well as programs, activities, cultural, social. And it really is an organization that adapts to seniors at changing the needs as you get older. The original one was in Boston, and I understand today, the original village, their average member is 84 years old. We starting out will probably have a much younger group who hopefully will grow with this and their organization. And it's an organization of the people. They will decide what services are needed, what activities they want, so everyone gets to participate and join in. So the kinds of services, real quickly, are transportation. That's a really important one. Minor home repairs. Referrals for major home repairs. We have vetted vendors. And all sorts of other activities of that sort. And in the activities, we have everything from lectures to hiking to lunch and a movie to really, whatever people want to do. Any sort of special interest groups will be established. So that is our news for today. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Dinah. We'll now move on to commissioner reports, and let's start with a report on education from Karen.
Thank you very much, Chair Fotheringham. Okay, so last month I told you about an organization called the Senior Center Without Walls.org, and it's a national center in which you can take classes via your telephone or computer, but most of them are on the telephone. Now today, I would like to change that up altogether and talk about classes that are right here in our community that you can go to. And if you're able to get out and go to a class, it's really wonderful, not only for the learning experience, but for the socialization experience, if that's at all possible. So I'm going to talk to you today about 3 organizations that offer classes locally at a very good price or free. And let's start with our own Thousand Oaks Library. And this is great. This is a free class, learning the basics of Microsoft Word. Now, I know a lot of you are writers out there, and hopefully by now you are good with Word. But if you need a class, that is coming up this Friday from 10:15 till 12, Basics of Microsoft Word at the Grant Brimhall Library. Take it. And then, I love this. This is coming up next week at the Newbury Park Library, and it's a class in book folding, where you take an old book that you don't use anymore and learn how to fold the pages to make the sculpture of a flower. That's kind of hard to picture, and I forgot to bring mine today because I took this class a couple months ago, and you learn to fold the pages so that mine came out like a star, and it's really pretty. It's like a little sculpture you can put up in your living room, and it is very relaxing. So I just loved it. So think about that. That is coming up at the Newbury Park Library on 10/5 from 6:30 till 7:30. You need to bring a book, and there's no other price. And then at the Grant Brimhall Library, coming up on 5/11, is learning how to save your stuff in your computer to the cloud. And I have told you many times, I don't really understand any of this, and someday I need to take this class because saving documents to the cloud is supposedly safer than trying to save them on your hard drive. So that is coming up 5/11 from 5:15 to 7 o'clock at the Grant Brimhall Library. And then this is one that I took a year ago before I started Medicare, so you have to take this. And it says if you are turning 65 and don't know how to sign up yet for Medicare and what that's all about, take this free class, little lecture at the Grant Brimhall Library on May 17th from 6:30 till 8. It's like a Medicare 101 class. It's really, really good. It explains everything very, very clearly, and we know that Medicare for first-timers can be confusing. It was for me. But this class really helped. And the program will be repeated at the Newbury Park Library on May 22nd. Call for the time. Okay? So those are some upcoming library classes. Now, you know, but I'm just going to tell you a few things coming up at the Goebel Adult Community Center. There are always really outstanding classes and everything. And, you know, this is through the Kaneho Recreation and Park District, so be sure to check the brochure that came out. And if you accidentally threw it away, there are brochures right in the front lobby over at the Goebel Center. So you can take classes in fitness and yoga and reflexology, or if you've always wanted to learn how to watercolor, there's Introduction to Watercolor. Or if your digital photography's come out a little like mine do, take a digital photography class. Intro to Guitar, line dancing. And what's cool, I've taken the line dancing class here What I like about it is that it's not only really good exercise, but you have to remember the order of the steps. So I thought, oh my God, I found it to be not only, like I said, good exercise, but also a real good mental exercise. So you might, consider that also. Check out the Global Community Center when you have a chance. And then finally, let me tell you about the Kaneho Valley Adult Education Program. Their brochure, their summer class brochure just came out also. And I think summer is a really, really wonderful time to take classes because sometimes the pace is a little slower. Sometimes the classes aren't so crowded. Really consider taking a class this summer. And this is one called Family and Friends CPR. It's only $25. And it's for people who want to learn CPR but do not need, that special handy-dandy CPR card for your job. The course is great for parents, grandparents, babysitters, anyone who spends time with taking care of another person. This CPR class just might do the trick for you. And then if you want to maybe learn some new office skills. Maybe you're kind of itching to go back to work, do something in the labor market. You can become a notary public in one day. They have that program. Beside a whole variety of office skills program and medical program, or maybe you're already in the medical field and you want to upgrade by learning to become some sort of phlebotomy technician or, I don't know, some other specialty in the medical field. Check out the Kaneho Valley Adult School. And then beside the classes in job skills, there's writing workshops, astrology class, hiking, French, Italian, and Spanish, Tai Chi, chair yoga. Check it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. As someone who doesn't even write in books, book folding may be psychologically difficult. All right, let's move on to Ron, who'll give us the update on fraud.
Good afternoon. I hope after our last talk, all of you are learning how to hang up that phone without giving any information out over it. Today, I would like to talk about several things. I'm going to have a phone number for you, so if you find a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen while I'm talking to you, I'm going to give you a couple of phone numbers later on, so be prepared to write it down. First of all, there's an excellent resource that I'd like to give to you, talk to you about. You may already have heard of Betty Barry. She has a column in the Star and has some very good resources for you, very good information for seniors. So if you can get a copy of the Star, I think you'll learn a lot about the seniors' programs and information. She's a real whiz on the senior scene. Now, we now have a hotline in Thousand Oaks, a scam hotline. And I think you may remember we had a deputy here, Deputy Tim, who was talking about creating this hotline. Well, we now have it. And that's one of the phone numbers I want to give to you. It's area code 805-371-8327. That's 805-371-8327. And that will give you information 24 hours a day on the latest scams that are being perpetrated here in Thousand Oaks. And many of them, seniors are a real target now, for these things. And one of the scams that are being perpetrated right now is on veterans. There's a phone line imposter. Now, this is a little complicated, but they create a mimic phone line. And they use a 1-800 prefix. Right away, that's tell you that that's wrong. That's not the one you want to use, because the correct veterans line is 866. And so what you want to be very careful with, because this is set up to mimic the actual phone line, And according to the article we got from the community care, this line is being used to steer people into offering a $100 rebate to them if you give them a credit card number. Well, now right away, most people say, "Oh, wow, that sounds ridiculous. Who's going to fall for that?" Well, a couple of hundred people every day fall for that, and they're making a lot of money on getting your credit card. You shouldn't give your credit card number to anybody on the telephone. Nobody. Hopefully, this will help some people to realize that they are a target and be very, very careful with personal information. That's the bottom line. And learn to hang up that phone. Thank you, and see you next month.
Okay, thank you, Ron. We'll turn to Loretta for an update on health.
Oh, thanks. I'll Okay, yeah, I've created a PowerPoint. I'm not going to read the PowerPoint, but you can have it online with our meeting here, and it can give you a lot more details and the website addresses. And if you print them out, the links should work or if you do them online, the link should take you to the websites that are in the PowerPoint. In April 16th through the 22nd this year was the National Healthcare Decisions Week. They had a whole week this year. Before it used to be just a day. And right before this, if you remember last month, we had a meaningful speaker on end-of-life decision-making tasks. So this month I wanted to follow up with you on more resources that's helped me and should help you to complete these very important tasks. There's a great organization out there that I've subscribed to for the last few years, and it's called compassionandchoices.org. And on their website, you can sign up for their email, and then on their website, they have 4 excellent tools to help you to use. The 4 tools I'll go over real quickly. The first one is the Diagnosis Decoder. The second one is a trust card, and I spoke a little bit about this last month when I talked about talking to your doctor. And then the third tool is the end-of-life tools, and then the fourth tool is accessing medical aid in dying in your state. So the first tool, the Diagnosis Decoder, and I have a couple of shots that I'll show you, is a tool that helps you ask your physicians better questions so you can receive more complete information about your treatment options and be fully affaired. And all of these are like decision trees. If you've ever done any kind of activity with that, you answer a question and then it branches out based on your response to how to follow up. It's a very simple tool, and it walks you through what I presented last month in a clear and simple way. So the next slide, please. This is the little piece of the Diagnosis Decoder, and it says, first it starts out, I'll just go quickly to, do you want to discuss a new problem? Do you want to discuss treatment options with your doctor? Or do you want to follow up on tests or treatments? And based how you answer that, and at the end, it prints you out a nice list of what to take to the doctor. Okay, now the next slide is the second tool. So you got your card to take to the doctor. Then this trust card helps, if you have a serious illness, build an open relationship by clearly conveying what your values are, what your personal values are in a respectful and friendly manner. And again, this tool also creates a card that you can take to the physician based on the answers to your questions. And if you look at the next slide, it'll say, help your doctor to help you. You're not just any patient, you're you. Create a trust card to help your specialist know what's special about you. Okay, and then I put a next shot, I don't know how good this one is, it's a little pale, I know. Then if you look at it online, you can see it helps you connect with people or allow me allow more time to ask questions. It goes through a whole little, you pick, again, it's a decision tree. So you pick what you want to focus on, and it helps you create that. Because remember, last week, doctor stopped listening after about 30 seconds to 1 minute into your visit. So anyway. Okay, the third tool on the next slide that I want to talk about is tools that'll help you manage your end-of-life care. And it takes you through 3 steps. Assess what's important to you at end of life. And how do you speak to your loved ones about these issues? And then it helps you put your plan together, and it's really very helpful. I'm using it myself. And then the third step is to take charge of your health care. And again, it walks you through a decision-making tree, and you really feel good about what you've decided on by the end of this. It's very thorough. Okay, then the fourth one is a link on information accessing medical aid in dying in authorized states like Oregon, California. And it takes you through what is medical aid in dying. It takes you through state-specific information packets you need and your state resources. So again, all of these are on www.compassionandchoices.org. A wonderful, wonderful website, and it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. We'll now turn to Terry for an update on social services.
Thank you. So Commissioner Gorbach mentioned classes that you could take at our local libraries, and I'm going to kind of carry on from that. We've got a speaker coming up on genealogy, and so I want to share the myriad of resources that are available through the library related to genealogy, because I'm sure after today's speaker you're going to all be excited and want to get out there and start digging into this. So here's some resources that you can use for it. I will start with the website, and I'll read it to you really quickly. It's long, but you can go to www.tolibrary.org/research/by-topics/genealogy. So I know that's a mouthful, but you will be able to find the genealogy specific information through that site. What you see on the screen right now is what that actual page looks like. And so that's the welcome page for genealogy. And what I wanted to point out is every available application is going to be tagged with one of these 3 colored icons that you'll see in the middle that are circled. The one in blue, if the resource is tagged with that blue icon, it means that you can access it from home, but you will need a library card. The one in red means the resource is only available in the library on the library computers. And the one in green means it's a web-based resource and you can access it from anywhere. There's no restrictions on it and no library card required. So there's several different items available. I'm going to just hit on a few of them, but if you go to the first page, for electronic research, one of them is American Ancestors. And again, this one's only available in the library. It's sponsored by the Kaneho Valley Genealogical Society. And AmericanAncestors.org is interesting. It's got 3,000 unique searchable databases that you can get to more than 400 million searchable names. And it's maintained by the New England Historical and Genealogical Society. So there's a wealth of information there. Also, America's News, which is put out by Ventura County Star. There's a library card required for that, but that has a lot of local, state, and national information as well. On the next page, just was going to highlight California Digital Newspaper Collection. This has historical California newspapers back from 1846 to 1922. So there's a lot of information there. And that one's web-based as well. On the next page, the first item, Family Search. There's records from 4,500 family history centers in 70 countries. And it's web-based. No card required, and you don't have to go into the library. On the next slide, the Los Angeles Times has one. Again, you need a library card is required, but you can go back and look at Los Angeles Times obituaries from 1881 through to the current. So there's a lot of searching that we can be doing. The next page, this one I thought was fun, the Mayflower Documents, and this one's web-based. You can actually look at the original documents that are conserved from the State Library of Massachusetts from the Plymouth colony. So it's got a list of all the passengers that came over on the Mayflower Compact, and the first Thanksgiving, and they're all downloadable. So this is a great resource. And then our Genealogical Society is also sponsoring some of these other items. In addition to the California State Library at the bottom, Kaneho Valley Genealogical Society, there's a workshop listing where the holdings of the society can be searched via the library catalog. And then on the next page, Ventura County Recorder. It's got deeds, it's got court decrees, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, and it's all web-based. There's no card required, and you don't have to be in the library. So these are just a few, and a lot of it you can do from your own home on the computer. There's just a myriad of resources. So when you, like I said, you're going to be very excited to start digging into your family tree, and there's a lot of resources there to get you started. So on the last page, for those of you interested in going into the library, and again, the Genealogical Society does volunteer in the Thousand Oaks Library, I believe most days during the week. So they're there to help with questions you may have. The Thousand Oaks Library is on 1401 Jans Road, and the Newbury Park Library is on 2331 Borchard Road in Newbury Park. And in addition, you know, we focused on genealogy, but in addition to that, the library offers, and in addition to books, of course, the library offers DVDs, CDs. There's a lot of audiobooks if you're taking driving trips. There's a lot of downloadable books, magazines, newspapers, and other research databases that we didn't even talk about here. And last but not least, the most important thing that the library offers is the best aquarium ever in Thousand Oaks. So I encourage everybody to visit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. We turn now to our liaison reports, and we'll start off with a VC AAA report from Commissioner Gorbach.
Thank you very much. You know, May is Older Americans Month, and in honor of that, the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging, in partnership with the Ventura County Human Services Agency, is sponsoring a caregivers event on May 24th at the Oxnard Marriott, the hotel. It's right off Vineyard there, from 8 in the morning till 11:30. And the topic, let me read this so I get it. The whole thing. The topic is going to be Age Out Loud, You Have a Voice. Again, this is for caregivers. And the keynote speaker is Jean Steele, who is an author and professional speaker. And her topic is Happy People Win. This event is free to all caregivers, and it includes a fabulous breakfast. If you've ever eaten there, you know what I'm talking about, okay? And but you have to reserve a spot. It's free, but you need to reserve by calling 805-477-7320 or 477-7354. Again, 477-7320 or 477-7354. This event, again, is coming up on May 24th. I'll be there, so if you happen to go, please come on by, find me, and say hello. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen. And standing in for Rick Tanaka today, Commissioner Healy will talk to us about CSVP.
Okay. Rick Tanaka, who is the director of the Kaneho Senior Volunteer Program, is hopefully celebrating his birthday today. I don't know, but he's not here, so I will do his report. The first thing to address is the tax season is over, but volunteers are still ready to help those who have filed extensions, need to do amendments, or just need general tax assistance. This free service is available to people 60 years of age or older, or persons with an income of $54,000 or less, regardless of their ages. This team of volunteers is IRS trained and certified. Last year, they completed just under 1,900 returns. The service is on the first Wednesday of each month by appointment only. To make an appointment, call 381-2742 to schedule your appointment. There are volunteers available, volunteer opportunities available with a Kaneho Senior Volunteer Program always. It is what I attribute my happy retirement to, is when I retired, I needed to find something to take the place of my 10-hour-a-day job, and they found some really great spots. So highly advise you to go talk to Rick. The Kaneho Senior Volunteer Program constantly has new volunteer opportunities. They're become available every week. They get new needs every week. So if they don't have something this week, they will next week. And this month is no exception. Some of the highlights include a wide variety of needs with United Cancer Advocates Action Network, or the abbreviation is UCAAN. Second one is assisting with Girl Scout camping programs in June and July. As an ex-Brownie leader, I can tell you that is really fun to go camping with little girls. Contact the CSVP office today to find out how you can get started with volunteering. And if these don't appeal to you, I started with being a long-term care ombudsman through this. They have some really things that will make your senior years much more rewarding. One of the big things that's coming up right now is the Theater Fest, and I attended this last year. It was really fun. Tickets are on sale now for the Kaneho Players Theater, and at this date, this performance will be a special performance of the critically acclaimed Broadway hit Social Security. It's on June 10th. It's a Saturday, 2017. There will be a backstage wine reception at 1 p.m., and then the curtains go up at 2 p.m. Tickets are only $20, with a portion of the proceeds going back to support the continuing community efforts of the Kaneho Senior Volunteer Program. Pick up your tickets today at the Global Adult Community Center. I'm definitely going again. They had prizes last time. They had wine for sale. It was really a very fun afternoon. Please contact the CSVP office, again, at 805-381-2744 with any questions on getting volunteer opportunities or any of the other things that we talked about today. Thanks, and take advantage of this resource. It's great for seniors. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We turn now to Commissioner Norkin for an update on the Goebel Center.
Hi, I'm sitting in for Patty Ham, who couldn't make it today because she's working in the kitchen today serving meals to seniors. I don't look as pretty as she does, but I'll try to.
You do.
Anyway, let's get started. The first thing is we're going to have a Cinco de Mayo celebration on Friday, May 5th at 5 p.m. The tickets will be $9 per person. Then we're going to have a Mother's Day intergenerational tea on Saturday, May 10th from 10 to 12. The tickets will be $5 a person. And then there's going to be a National Senior Health and Fitness Day on Wednesday, May 31st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Reserve at Thousand Oaks. The Reserve is located at 3575 North Moore Park Road. Public transportation is provided from the Goebel Center, or if you want, you can drive yourself. But reservations are required, so please call 805-381-2744. And now for the Goebel Commission, they're going to present Music Comes Alive on Sunday, May 21st from 2 to 3:30 p.m. This time the presentation will be a tribute band, and it will be Visions of Fleetwood Mac. So if you're a fan of the Music Comes Alive program, please get your ticket now because they sell out fast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harry. We now have a little time for commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments? Karen?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. This Sunday, 4 o'clock at the Goebel Center is the 2017 Miss Senior Ventura County Pageant. And I am going to be assisting with the MC duties. And if you've attended in the past, you know it is a really fun afternoon. Tickets are $10 at the door. And again, if you come, be sure to come on up and say hello. And then second, I'm going to be teaching this summer a memoir writing class at Kaneho Valley Adult School, and reservations are now open for registration, rather. This is only going to be, we shortened it this summer, it's going to be 3 Mondays from June 12th through 26th from 10 until 12. The cost is $65. For seniors, it's $55. If writing a memoir is something you always sort of thought about, might want to check that out. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, Nancy?
I just wanted to say that I'm really proud that Commissioner Gorbach was one of our past Miss Senior Ventura Counties, and she is on this board with us. So I think that's great. I was a judge 3 years, I think. It's really a fun event to go to. It's a very positive afternoon. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, Loretta?
Oh, thank you. Everybody mark your calendars again. I'm doing a pitch for our Senior of the Year award ceremony. It's going to be on Thursday evening, the 8th of June, and tickets are, the recommended donation is $6, and so it'll be at the Goebel Center, and it's a wonderful dinner. It's being provided by Cisco's Mexican restaurant, but actually, understanding the menu, it's really more French-American. So they have a very global service that they can provide. So it's not going to be Mexican foods. And it's been taste tested by previous seniors, so and approved. So we've got a good deal going here. And it's a really fun evening. We have some door prizes, and it's a chance to honor all of our seniors who do so much volunteer work, and the people who nominated them, either individuals or community service places. So come and have a good time and join us in honoring our fellow seniors. Also, in June, they will be talking on volunteerism at our June meeting, so you'll get to understand why they volunteer a little bit more. The nominees. Oh, I can announce the nominees, sure. Our nominees are Mary Ann Best, Seda or Annie Gallagher, Patricia L. Grant, Irv Kerner, Lorraine Nesbitt, David Nesbitt, they're a husband and wife team, Michael Selig, Mary Ann, or Skip, as she likes to be called, Shaver. So they're all wonderful people, and they just have done wonderful things for our community. So come and help celebrate them. Thank you.
Hey, Terry?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to announce for those of you that might be interested in actually serving on our council here, there will be applications open until May 4th, and you can fill out an application to be selected for an interview to participate with the Council on Aging. The new session starts in September, I believe, of this year, September 17. So if you're at all interested in getting involved in the community in that way, please make sure you go online. It's www.toaks.org/seniors, and you can get the application to apply.
Okay, May 4th is tomorrow. Is that the deadline for turning in the application or picking it up?
It's actually the deadline for turning in the application.
Turning in
So
the
you
application.
want to do it online if you're not picking
All
up
right.
a hard copy. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Any other comments, Commissioner comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll yield the floor to Commissioner Mortimer, who will introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to introduce Robert Dempster, Governor of the Rancho Kaneho Colony of Mayflower Descendants. He is a past member of the Council of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and is a life member of that organization. He is originally from New England and currently lives in Newbury Park with his family and enjoys sharing his family history. Please welcome Robert Dempster.
You don't have to do that. Thank you very much, Donna, for having contacted me and invited me to come and speak to you. As I was listening to your different speakers and different members of the commission, I couldn't help but come away with the feeling, this is a wonderful town. this is really a magnificent city that we live in, and all the things that take place here, most things probably the average citizen doesn't even know about. And so I think this is a wonderful thing that you're doing, and there are probably other commissions that do the same thing. I was quite impressed with your comment about the genealogy section at the Thousand Oaks Library. Genealogy has been a hobby of mine for 40, 45 years, and coming out of New England, it was quite appropriate to trace your ancestry and to find how many of my ancestors are actually on that little boat that came into Plymouth in 1620. I think if everybody feels that they had family on the Mayflower was actually on there, it'd probably be the size of the Titanic. But the truth is the Mayflower only had 102 passengers on there, and half died the first winter. But that's another story. What I wanted to talk about today was something, again, coming from New England, is a little bit more closer to home for me. And that is that some of the dates that we associate with the founding of this country and dates that were significant to us, more recently 9/11, December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. I do for my Rotary Club. I try to imitate FDR. Not well at all. November 11th, 1917, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, to end the war that was supposed to end all wars. And I don't know how many wars we've had since. And then 4th of July, 1776. And then April 18th, 1775. Now, this is not a date that people on the West Coast can associate with, but coming out of New England, it's called Patriots Day. And that's what when Donna asked me what I'm going to talk about, I said, well, we're not far removed from that celebration here a couple of weeks ago. Most people now associate it with the Boston Marathon, but there are a number of events reenactors who carry out what happened on that day. So I want to talk about this in the context of something that now how do I start this? Isn't this wonderful? I suppose I should put this on because you probably all can. Now, is it? Yeah. Now, if you can remember it, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but if you can remember, recite along with me. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive. And this goes on and on and on. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was a wonderful poet. However, when it comes to history, he came up a little bit short. The poem lacks a lot of authenticity, and so we're going to talk about that over the next few minutes, what actually happened on that day. But Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote that poem 100 years after the actual events that took place in that year in 1775. So he's allowed to have made a few poetic licenses in the process of creating the poem. And the biggest one, of course, he never said, "The British are coming, the British are coming." They all consider themselves British. Everybody who lived in the colonies considered themselves British. They considered their home England. They were all enamored of their king, King George. And remember, this was not a country. This was not even United States. They weren't even states. They were colonies. And each colony had its own character. Each one had its own set of guidelines. They had their own little legislature. Virginia had their House of Burgess, and Massachusetts had their own thing. There were a lot of events that were taking place prior to Paul Revere's ride, and you can even see the Old North Church in the background. But this was the Boston Massacre. Boston was an occupied city. There were British soldiers famous for their red coats. Some of them called them red coats, some of them called them lobster backs. And if you've ever had a Maine lobster, you know what that's like after it's cooked. And some kids were having fun, and they're throwing snowballs at the soldiers just to egg them on. Well, one thing led to another, and the young man who was probably in charge of the regiment hollered, "Open fire," and several people were hurt, injured. And recognizing that those soldiers were not really guilty, they were defended and found not guilty by John Adams. And he took on that, and he was very unpopular for having done that. So here we have all these colonies being run from afar, and one of the things that led to this powder keg environment were these stamp taxes. And there were taxes on everything. England needed to finance the war with France. So what was the most popular thing you could put a tax on? Tea. And so this ships, they were in Boston Harbor waiting to be unloaded, when a number of Patriots, I'm sure back then in England they were called radicals, they were called terrorists. However you want to describe, one man's terrorist and another man's patriot. So a number of the Patriots disguised themselves as Indians, and it probably was not a very good disguise. I don't think how you could have made yourself look like an Indian. But anyway, they went on board the ships and dumped all the tea into the harbor. Well, this created a major, major problem. England put an embargo on the Boston port. And again, remember, this is all about Boston. This was not the same fervor in the other colonies. The other 12 colonies, they had their own little issues, but it came to the forefront in Boston, where there was a far bigger fervor for doing something. Now, I would use my little pointer, but I don't think it'll show up if I use it on for the folks at home. But this is Boston in 1775. Boston is that strip of land, a little peninsula, jutting out into the harbor. It's joined to the mainland by what's called the Boston Neck, or the Dorchester Neck. So it's a relatively small piece of land. This is Boston today. All that area has been filled in because Logan Airport is all based on fill. Everything's based on fill. And you could probably hardly find in that picture the Old North Church. But it was a prominent fixture in that part of Boston, jutting out into the harbor. So they had spies. The British had spies all over. They knew that the Patriots were squirreling away arms out in a place called Concord. But by the same token, the Patriots had spies as well. So they knew what the English were planning. And so it was a hotbed of stuff. And here's our good friend Paul Revere, and that is in front of the Old North Church. It is still a church, I have prayed in there. It's an Episcopal church. It's quite interesting. If you're ever back in Boston, you need to go see that. And the infamous lanterns, of which there were two. The gentleman who was entrusted with sending that signal was Robert Newman. And he was the verger at the Old North Church. And he was the one who went up, and it was quite a rickety stairway up to the top, in order to flash 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. And if you remember our picture of Boston, now, because there was a very, very bad situation, they had the good sense to pull a lot of the troops out of Boston, and they were squirreled away on a ship in the harbor. Gates was sent over, the General Gates, by the King George. He said, you've got to put to rest these meddlesome Massachusetts people. And so that was his job. On the other side, Thomas Hancock. And Tom was the one who was organizing some of the resistance. The troops were squirreled away on the HMS Somerset, anchored in the harbor. And so Paul Revere had gone to the Old North Church, instructed Newman, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. And by land, they meant they would have gone out that neck, the Dorchester neck, and have come around. And if by sea, they would have gone from that boat directly over to what they call Lechmere. And Paul Revere was waiting on the other side for the signal. Now, why would they want to invade Massachusetts? So that we could say we conquered. No. This is the route. If you look in the far right, I would use my handy dandy thing, and it won't show up for the folks at home, but for you here, this is Boston Neck. The British are there. Old North Church is there. If the route was going to be by land, it would have come down the neck and come around. For you folks at home, it would have mean this little loop down in the bottom right-hand corner of that map. Waiting on the other side, up over in here, is Paul Revere, and he's waiting for the signal, and he was going to go out. So that we had two people. Dawes was down here in the green, and Revere was up above, and they were going to sound the alarm. Now, they didn't go around yelling, the British are coming, the British are coming. Instead, what they did was they would go around and knock on the door and whisper, the regulars are coming, the regulars are coming. But they didn't shout it because they didn't want to alert all the spies, and there were patrols all around, to the fact that we're on to you when we know you guys are on your way, so we're going to be watching out for you. As it turned out, the British took the sea route, which means they went right across the bay, and they started marching. If they went to about halfway there is Arlington, 7 miles. And then from there to Lexington is about 3 miles. Concord's another 3 miles past that. So not a huge distance. Now, this guy, Paul Revere, who was he? He was a silversmith. That was what he was doing. When he died, there is no mention at all in any of the obituaries of his famous ride. It was just not considered that prevalent. And the truth is that he got captured and released several times and never really made it to Concord. So here's the guy who really did it, which was Edmund Dawes. And he's the guy who, but again, he never made it into Paul Revere's poem, so he didn't go down in history. Maybe if someone came up with a clever rhyme with Dawes, Who knows what happened to Dawes? Anyway, let me see where I am here on my. I hope I'm not boring you guys to tears yet. So, because of the alert, all the stores that had been squirreled away in Concord were then taken elsewhere, so they weren't there. There's a Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith was the guy who was out to find them. He had 800 men with him. Meanwhile, Dawes and Revere are riding. They were stopped several times. Dawes managed to escape. They kept Revere. He also managed to get away, but he never made it to Concord in time, or ever. Now, this is the I should know this by heart, but can't know everything. This is the Hancock House. Thomas Hancock's father was a minister. This is where Thomas Hancock grew up. This is in Lexington. Paul Revere knocked on the door when he finally got there and told him that the regulars were on their way. They were assembling the militia who were going to assemble on Lexington Green. However, Hancock and John Adams was there. They wanted to go and join, and they said, no, you have a far bigger role to play. Disappear. And they did. So they did not participate in any of the events, but they slipped quietly away so they could live to fight another day. This is the Monroe Tavern in Lexington. When Smith saw that he was kind of outnumbered, he asked for reinforcements, and a colonel by the name of Perry came, and this was the Monroe Tavern in Lexington. And the other interesting thing is these buildings are still there, and they're in use, and some of them inhabited, some of them are museums. But anyway, Perry, who came to provide reinforcements, occupied this. He took it over, and this was his headquarters while he was in the Lexington area. And this is the Buckman Tavern in Lexington, and this is where the militia assembled in Buckman Tavern before they went out on to Lexington Green, where they were to meet the oncoming Brits. And they stood off to each other. The British, in typical British fashion, lined up in proper order, all in lines, and, at the right command, they will open fire. The militia, they shrugged and, they hid behind a rock or behind a tree, and they weren't going to be there as sitting ducks. So this was the standoff, and this is the battle green in Lexington, and the insignia on that rock says, "If they mean to have war, let it begin here." And so this was where this all started on that day in April in 1775, and this is when the Revolutionary War started, well over a year before what happened on the 4th of July in 1776. So there was a standoff. They shot at each other, and then Smith decided that it was time for him to move on toward Concord. That's where he had intended to go. So they moved on, heading toward Concord. When this fight was over, it only lasted a few minutes. There were 10 dead and 8 wounded. And then they moved on toward Concord. we call these guys Minutemen because you'll see the guy on the left, he's got a plow, because that's what they all were. They were farmers. None of them were professional soldiers. They would have their gun in one hand and the plow in the other. And that's what they intended to do, was to come to the defense when needed and then go back to the farm and continue farming. So at the drop of a hat or in a minute, they could assemble. And that surprised the Brits greatly. They finally met again on Concord Bridge, and in typical British fashion, they came marching over with, in rank, the Patriots, all these Minutemen, they're, okay, we can pick these guys off. And they proceeded to do that. So the gentleman who was in charge of this, Smith, decided it was time to retreat. When this battle was over, there were 74 British killed, 174 wounded, and 26 missing. The Patriots, 49 killed, 41 wounded, and 5 missing. There were about 1,800 Brits participated and 3,700 on the American side. This was the retreat from Concord. On the bottom right is the relief column from Perry, who was heading out. Perry never made it past that house, which is about halfway on that map. And they went on their way, tried to get back to Boston. The Patriots weren't playing like gentlemen. They hid behind rocks and behind trees and picked them off. And then, after they'd had their fun, another group would pick up the fight further on down the road as they were heading back to Boston. So there was always somebody there after them. I think it was not long after this that the Patriots reassembled on Bunker Hill, and that's where there was another engagement leading to the famous comment, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." And so this was really how the thing started and eventually led to the Revolutionary War. But at this point, it was just an uprising of some people who were fed up with that kind of rule from afar. And at no time were they thinking that this is America we're fighting for. They were fighting for individual liberties. Every one of these colonists considered themselves still English. They were not ready for this, quote, Declaration of Independence, which came later. And even after that was issued, there was a goodly number of people who never actually supported the war. A number of them fled to Canada. Some of them took on trader status, such as our good friend Aaron Burr, who retired with some shame in England. So it was a very interesting part of our history, and I think that we all can be very proud of these non-professional soldiers who didn't know anything except how to be defensive for their liberties and what they did on behalf of all of us. So I thank you for your interest. It's my story. I have some relatives who are involved, and I'm going to stick to it. Thank you very, very much for the chance to speak to you.
Thank you, Robert. That was a very interesting presentation.
Oh, I'm trying to think who's speaking.
And a great history lesson for those of us that have kind of forgotten what we learned when we were in school. So
Yes,
thank you very
yes.
much for that.
All right. Well, my pleasure, to be sure.
Okay, do we have questions from the commissioners? Yes.
And I would like to agree. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. So my question is, you mentioned that you are a descendant of the folks from the Mayflower, and is that something that knowledge has been passed down in your family from generation to generation, so that you knew as a child that this was a very significant event in your family's history? Or did you come to learn this as an adult, and how did that all come about?
Interesting question, and a very good question. Number one, growing up, I would hear from my grandmother, well, we were on the Mayflower. Oh, really? But that was it. Only later did I say, I wonder what that's all about, and started to do the research. I have a daughter and a son, neither one of which could care less. And we have found, for instance, the General Society of Mayflower Descendants, which are those who have gone through the steps to prove that, has about 30,000 members in the United States. The California Society has about 3,000. And then here in the Kaneho, we have a colony, which is the Rancho Kaneho Colony, and we have 41 members. Almost all of the people who do this as a hobby are singularly involved, and the rest of their families are not particularly interested. You get deer in the headlights look when, for the most part, I'm a Mayflower descendant. Really? Oh, how interesting is that? But it is a labor of love. My wife, who is a native Californian, she had to suffer through hearing me in different social, my family came over to Mayflower, and she said, yeah, God. So she finally decided she was going to pursue her own, and her family came over with Champlain. Now, I have relatives that settled Jamestown in 1607, Mayflower in 1620. So I'm sound asleep, and if you have ever done any genealogy, it becomes absorbing, and you could be in the middle of the night, and you're still at the computer trying to get this stuff. And she comes in and shakes me. She says, Nana, we were here before you. To which I hear this almost every day. So it is, I would say that very, very few people get this, and they get it right from when they're very young. They almost all do the research themselves. When it comes to the Mayflower, the first 5 generations are done. So if you want to apply for membership, and there are only 24 family names that you can descend from to prove your ancestry on the Mayflower. And interestingly enough, nobody has just one. I've got 6 passengers on the Mayflower. And most of the people that I know in the society, they've got a half a dozen as well. Given the fact that you had very few, half the people died the first winter, so there are only 50 survivors, your chances for propagation were fairly limited. So that became a limiting factor on, but it became you. If you got one, you've got 2 or 3 at least. But it is an interesting thing that it is not something that is universally appealing to people. There are far more people interested in the DAR. Far greater emphasis on that. Their companion, their Sons of the Revolution, which is the guys part of it. But I'm giving a talk, I think it's the same talk, to the Colonial Dames, and this is an organization. If you're into this whole thing, there are probably about 20 different hereditary organizations you can join. I belong to the Jamestown Society. I belong to the Mayflower Society. I'm a baron in the baronial order of the Magna Carta. And But it's just a personal thing. But nobody does it for bragging rights. It's just something that you just get involved in. And interesting enough, there is here in the Kaneho, there is a Jewish genealogical society, which is very, very active. I'm on the council of the Corporation of the New England Historic Genealogical. We have a very large Jewish genealogical section, very, very active. So it's not just for these old Yankees. It's available for a lot of people. So there are. I know someone who, if your ancestor operated a tavern, there was a tavern owner thing. If your ancestor was a clergyman, there's a clergyman's thing. If your ancestor started his name with an A, there's probably ancestor begin with an A. So, any other question? I don't know. That was a long way to get around to answer your question.
Any other questions?
Yes.
No.
And there's a gentleman from the Kaneho Valley Genealogical Society.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Question. My interest in genealogy stems much like yours. It's the family verbal lore that we had a Mayflower descendant or ancestor in the family, and our ancestors, the White family. But it hadn't occurred to me that there might be more than one, so I'm going to have to go back and look harder.
Yes.
For the second or third one and so forth. My question was that much of your story was about events that occurred much later than the Mayflower. Is there a society related to the Minutemen or the Patriots that fought at Bunker Hill?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. There is the SAR, which is the Sons of the American Revolution, the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. Then there's an SR, Sons of the Revolution, and then you'll find a half a dozen offshoots of this. I'm sure there is a Bunker Hill Battle Association. They just, and then there's all the family ones. For instance, all of this is my mother's family. My father, the Dempsters, came over from Scotland in the late 1800s. And they were a bunch of just hard drinking, and they served terms in jail and all that. So when you do genealogy, you always have to be careful and be willing to accept the fact that when you peel the layers of that onion back, there's good and there's bad and there's ugly. And you have to accept that that's families, and we all have that.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for a wonderful talk.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
We will prepare to close our meeting. And thank everybody for coming here. Our next meeting is going to be on June. Anybody have the date? It's the first Wednesday in June. 7th? June 7th. Same time, same place, from 1 p.m. and so forth in the Oak Room at the Civic Center. So with that, I'll declare this meeting adjourned.
Oh, pick me, pick me, pick me.